So Tom Bower just absolutely leveled Meghan Markle in a way that even her most aggressive critics haven't quite managed. And the reason it landed so hard isn't because he called her ambitious or difficult or fake, it's because he made the entire conversation about Harry. Not about what Meghan did to the royal family, not about Oprah, not about Spotify, but about what Harry actually gave up and what he's only now starting to realize he can never get back. And Bower, who has gone after Richard Branson, Tony Blair, and basically anyone with a reputation too polished to be real, didn't couch this in diplomatic language. He said, flat out, that Harry was a man who had everything: his brother, his friends, his country, his identity, and he traded all of it for a woman who, in Bower's words, had very limited talent and unlimited ambition. That's the gut punch. Not that Meghan is some cartoon villain, but that Harry walked into this with his eyes open and is only now, years too late, starting to count the cost. Before I get into the details, make sure you're subscribed to Windsor Weekly so you don't miss anything on this story. We're following every development as it happens. The thing that stopped everyone cold in Bower's assessment wasn't actually new information. It was the reframing. Because for years, the narrative has been that Meghan was the victim of a cold, rigid institution, that she was hounded by the press, that she and Harry fled to California to save their mental health and their family. But Bower's argument, and he's meticulous about this, is that Meghan never intended to stay in Britain, not from day one. The plan was always to get the title, get the platform, get the global recognition she couldn't earn on her own, and then get back to California. Harry was the vehicle. And the most damning evidence Bower points to isn't some leaked document or palace memo. It's a shooting weekend at Sandringham in 2017, not long after Harry first brought Meghan around his oldest friends. These were the people who had known him since he was a teenager. The kind of friends who don't care what title you carry because they knew you when you were just a mess of grief and bad decisions and charm. And Meghan, according to multiple sources Bower interviewed, spent that entire weekend correcting them. Challenging jokes, reprimanding humor she didn't like, taking issue with conversations that clashed with her values. One person who was there described her as a dampener on the whole atmosphere, and the text messages that went around among Harry's friends afterward all said the same thing: Harry must be nuts. Now here's where it gets surgical, because Bower doesn't just report that as a bad first impression. He identifies that weekend as the decisive moment. The moment Meghan made clear she had no intention of integrating into Harry's world, she expected Harry's world to disappear and be replaced by hers. And it was. Within a short time, not one person from that shooting weekend was invited to the wedding dinner. Every single one of them, gone. Cut off completely. And Bower's point is that this wasn't gradual. This wasn't a series of misunderstandings that snowballed. This was a clean break, executed immediately, and Harry went along with it. That's the part Bower keeps circling back to. Harry wasn't dragged, he participated, he changed his phone number and didn't tell his family. Not his friends, not distant relatives, his actual family. William, Charles, people he'd grown up with his entire life. One day they tried to reach him and the number was dead. No explanation, no warning. That's not a man making a choice, Bower says. That's a man who has been so completely reshaped by someone else's priorities that he doesn't even realize what he's doing anymore. And the palace saw it happening. That's the other thing Bower reveals that doesn't get enough attention. Queen Camilla, according to Bower, looked at what was happening to Harry and told a close friend 4 words. Just 4 words. Meghan's brainwashed Harry. No long analysis, no diplomatic hedging, just the bluntest possible summary of what everyone around the family was watching unfold in real time. William and Catherine saw it too. They had tried. There's an account Bower gives of a tea meeting that was supposed to be a reconciliation. Harry and Meghan sitting down with William and Catherine to smooth things over. And according to Bower, Meghan snapped at William, told him to take his finger out of her face, and Harry just sat there, watched it happen, and said nothing. William had actually tried to warn Harry before the engagement. He told him it was moving too fast. He'd even pulled in their uncle Earl Spencer to talk some sense into him. Harry's reaction was fury. He didn't want to hear it because by that point, according to Bower, Harry was already somewhere else mentally. He wasn't the brother William had grown up with. He was someone who mirrored Meghan's emotions, escalated her grievances, and carried her resentments as if they were his own. This is where Bower's analysis gets genuinely uncomfortable, because he doesn't let Harry off the hook by painting him as a pure victim. The vulnerability was real. Bower is clear about that. Harry never fully processed losing his mother at 12 years old. He struggled with alcohol, with his mental health, with relationships that kept falling apart. His girlfriends before Meghan, according to Bower, fled because of his depressions and paranoia. He was a man looking desperately for someone to anchor him. And then Meghan arrived, decisive and exciting and completely focused on him, and she gave him exactly what he had always been missing, or what he thought he was missing. Bauer's argument is that Meghan knew all of this. She read the room, she understood his weaknesses better than he did, and she used them. Not out of cruelty necessarily, but out of pure calculated ambition. She became what Harry needed so that Harry would become what she needed. And what she needed was a global platform she couldn't build on her own. Let's be honest about what Meghan actually was before Harry. A C-list actress with a supporting role on a cable show, no obvious path to international prominence, and according to Bauer, very limited talent. Her problem was never that she lacked drive. Bauer actually says he almost admires her ambition. She started from nothing, and she worked terribly hard at the appearances, at smiling in the right place, at constructing a persona. But talent wasn't going to get her where she wanted to go. Marriage to Harry was the only vehicle that could, and once she had it, she never intended to stay in Britain and do the unglamorous work of being a working royal. A member of the establishment, someone Bauer describes as a very famous person, was assigned to help Meghan understand the chores and duties and responsibilities of being in the royal family. That person reported back to the palace that Meghan was going to be trouble, that she had no intention of falling into line. And she didn't. She created the grievances, Bauer says. And Harry then exaggerated and perpetuated them, which led to their departure. The tragedy Bauer keeps pointing to is that Harry thought he was getting love. What he was actually getting was leverage. And now in 2026, the full picture of what that leverage cost him is starting to come into focus. His charity, Sentebale, the one he built in honor of his mother to help children with HIV in Africa, he was forced to resign from it in March of last year. The CEO told him directly that people didn't want to be associated with his Netflix shows, and especially not with Meghan. Harry reportedly compared himself to Johnny Depp in response, which tells you everything about where his head was. His Netflix deal, the $100 million deal they signed in 2020, is gone, not renewed. Netflix walked away. His Polo documentary reportedly ranked so poorly internally that it barely registered. And Meghan's lifestyle show, according to people inside the streaming world, was absent from Netflix's own promotional materials before it even launched. One insider described it as the least entertaining, most self-obsessed series in Netflix history. The security case that consumed years of his legal energy and millions in costs, lost. He doesn't have automatic police protection when he visits the UK anymore. William's number is not in his phone. Nobody from his old life in London will return his calls. And then there's the thing that's been building for months, the thing everyone in their circle is now talking about openly. Harry and Meghan are reportedly living separate lives. Not according to tabloids looking for a headline, but according to people who know them. Insiders close to the couple told reporters just weeks ago that people in their world are starting to have very real fears that the marriage will not survive. The tension, one source said, is getting worse all the time. He stays home with the children. She pursues her social life, her brand, her appearances. They don't share common interests anymore, according to one insider. The business projects that held them together, Netflix, Spotify, are gone. And without the shared project of the Sussex brand, what is left? Harry reportedly is furious that Meghan keeps putting their children on social media. He doesn't want them paraded around. He wants them to have private lives. And according to insiders, Meghan keeps defying that wish. That, of all things, has become a genuine fault line. The woman Harry gave up his entire world for, his brother, his friends, his country, his identity, is now the woman he's reportedly fighting with inside a rented mansion in Montecito, arguing about Instagram posts. This is the brutal irony Bauer would point to if you asked him. Harry changed his whole life for this woman, and the life he changed it for is disappearing deal by deal, friendship by friendship, charity by charity. Until what's left is a man in California who lost a princess's world and got a momfluencer's Instagram in return. And for the first time in years, there are genuine signs that Harry is looking backward. Royal commentators who have spoken to people close to Harry say he wants reconciliation, that he has reportedly been hoping William would somehow reach out first, would somehow stumble and need him. And here's what Bauer would say about that hope. It is the hope of a man who has never truly experienced the consequences of burning bridges with people who love him. William is not going to stumble. William is not going to reach out because William is surrounded by Catherine and his children and a clear sense of purpose. Harry is the one who is struggling. Harry is the one who needs the reconciliation, not William. And the path back, if there even is one, runs straight through Meghan. As long as she is beside him, William will not let him back in. The damage she has done to that relationship, in Bower's view, is not the kind of damage that gets repaired at a team meeting. It's the kind of damage that gets repaired only when the source of it is no longer in the room. What makes Bower's perspective so distinct from the usual commentary is that he doesn't describe Meghan as stupid or simple or obvious. He says he almost admires her ambition. She created a persona, sustained it under enormous pressure, and never broke publicly. Not once. You never see her cry in public anymore after the strategy stopped working. You never see her visibly crack. She absorbs the criticism, disappears, recombs herself, and reappears looking immaculate. But the admiration ends, Bower says, at the human cost. Because in her climb, she burned everyone who helped her. Her father, her half-sister, her old friends who were never invited to the wedding, Harry's friends who vanished overnight, the palace staff who tried to welcome her, the people at Spotify who had to work with her, the editors and journalists who gave her a platform. One by one, they all got used and discarded. And now, in Bower's reading of this, the last person left standing in her circle is Harry. A man who gave up a kingdom for her and who is only now, very slowly and very painfully, beginning to understand what that actually cost him. Bower's central claim is not that Meghan is evil. It's something more uncomfortable than that. It's that Harry was a man tailor-made to be influenced, vulnerable, isolated, carrying unprocessed grief, longing for someone to tell him he was enough. And Meghan, whether by instinct or design, understood that perfectly. She didn't change him by force. She changed him by becoming exactly what he needed, and then, once he was fully changed, she used that version of him to build exactly the life she had always planned to have. The hypocrisy Bower highlights is staggering when you lay it out. Meghan is so judgmental toward the royal family, toward the institution, toward the idea of class and hierarchy, and yet she took the title. She's the Duchess of Sussex on a Disney infomercial, on Netflix, on every branded venture she's launched. If you can't stand these people or what they represent, then why are you still trading on the name? Bower calls it her narcissism and her commercialization and her frankly appalling behavior. She never intended to stay in Britain, but she took the title. And in the end, what he really holds against her is that she betrayed all those people who tried very hard, from the best of intentions, from the Queen downwards. And Harry is now in a position that even his harshest critics didn't predict. He's isolated from Britain. His charitable activities have become, in Bower's word, threadbare. His desperation is noticeable to many. When the Sentebale situation blew up, Harry briefed the Times newspaper in London that the CEO's conduct was terminally affecting the charity and that he was heading for bankruptcy, but she had actually raised enough money for it to continue despite him. She's now fighting that in a London court, and Bower's assessment of Harry's behavior in that whole situation is brutal, a complete lack of any self-awareness, of any understanding of reality. He just behaved as the arrogant royal. The real problem was that the CEO was brought in to revive the charity and modernize it, and the obstacle was always Harry. And then Meghan herself went to war against the CEO after the famous polo match. The thing about Bower is that publishing companies aren't stupid. They don't publish things that aren't true because they know they'll wind up in court. None of the people Bower has gone after, Branson, Blair, Meghan, have successfully sued him. He checks his facts. His book is called Betrayal. And the title isn't just about what Meghan did to the royal family, it's about what Harry did to himself. He was, as Bower puts it, the jovial lad about town. He was much loved, very popular, doing very well. He had all the money he needed, all the fame he needed, all the applause he needed. The point about Meghan is she was looking for those things and couldn't get them on her own. It was only by marrying Harry that she became the global celebrity she is. Her problem now, Bower says, is she can't earn money anymore. She made her money selling the dirt on the royal family, much of which in Bower's view was invented. And now she finds herself at an unfortunate crossroads where she can't raise money by work anymore other than what he calls tawdry things. The question everyone is now asking, and Bower poses it directly, is what happens to Harry when Meghan is done with him? Everyone is waiting to see how she's going to treat Harry in the end. Will she dump him? That's the question that hovers over everything. Because if her pattern holds, and the pattern is consistent, she uses people until they no longer serve her purpose, and then she moves on. Her father was discarded. Her half-sister was discarded. Harry's friends were discarded. The palace staff were discarded. The question is whether Harry will be discarded too. And what will be left of him if he is? He's already given up his country, his family, his friends, his charitable work, his security, his reputation. He changed his phone number and cut off his own brother. He's now a man in California who can't go home. Not really, because home doesn't want him back while Meghan is there. And Meghan isn't going anywhere unless she decides to. And here's the detail that should haunt everyone following the story. Bauer describes how Meghan, when she got to Britain and saw what fate awaited her in terms of being number 2 to Kate, not living in the luxury she wanted, having to obey the royal commands, she stoked constantly that Harry should feel aggrieved and should feel unhappy. She didn't just exploit his existing grievances, she manufactured new ones. She fed them. She made sure he stayed in a state of perpetual resentment because a happy, content Harry might have wanted to stay in Britain, might have wanted to reconcile with his family, might have wanted to go back to the life he had before. And that life was not the life Meghan wanted. So she made sure he couldn't go back. She separated him from his hinterland, as Bauer puts it, and now he suffers enormously by not having the friends he had in London. The regret, Bauer says, is there. You can see it in the interviews. You can see it in the way Harry talks about wanting to go home. You can see it in the silence around a brother he no longer has a number for. Can you imagine not even having your brother's phone number, not being able to call him with your tail between your legs to say you're sorry? That's where Harry is. And the tragedy is that the one person who could help him find his way back is the one person who will never allow it, because allowing it would mean giving up everything she worked to build. Meghan's entire identity now is tied to being the Duchess of Sussex, to being Harry's wife, to being the woman who stood up to the British establishment. If Harry goes back, even partially, what is she? A former actress with no title to trade on, no royal connection to monetize, no narrative of persecution to sell. She can't let that happen. And so Harry stays in California, isolated, frustrated, watching his deals collapse and his relevance fade, while the woman he gave up everything for builds her brand on the ashes of his former life. Bauer's final point is the one that lingers. Harry always needed and loved Meghan. It was a marriage made in heaven for him. She obviously went into the marriage with other things in mind, namely fame and fortune and a glittering career in California. And now the career is stalling, the fortune is dwindling, and the fame is increasingly the wrong kind. What holds them together when the shared project falls apart? Harry reportedly wants privacy for his children. Meghan keeps putting them on social media. Harry reportedly wants reconciliation with his family. Meghan has made that impossible. Harry reportedly is starting to see what he lost. Meghan is the reason he lost it. And the tension, according to insiders, is getting worse all the time. Bauer doesn't predict how this ends. He just lays out the evidence and lets the contradiction speak for itself. Harry gave up a kingdom for a woman who wanted a platform. Now the platform is cracking, and the kingdom is gone, and the woman is still there, still smiling, still immaculate, still working the angles, while Harry sits in a rented mansion counting the cost of a decision he can never undo.